The following is a paid program. WOR's airing of this program constitutes neither an endorsement of the products offered or the ideas expressed.
Welcome, everybody. It's the Radiosurgery Show with Dr. Gil Lederman, MD, New York's only Harvard-trained, triple board-certified radiation oncologist who brings you the latest cancer treatment news, interviewing world-renowned cancer experts, delving into special cases, and, of course, answering your questions. I'm Rob Redstone, broadcasting from the WOR studios in the heart of New York City. And now, please welcome Dr. Lederman.
Good morning. We're live in New York City. Rob, isn't that right?
That's right. Good morning, Dr. Lederman.
We're sitting here. I'm here with Rob Spencer. We have Mike. We have Eddie in the control booth. We say thank you to you for making it a perfect program. For those who want to test us, if we're live, we're at 800-321-0710. So you can call in all your medical cancer questions, 800-321-0710. So it was a monumental week, Rob.
Oh, yeah? Why is that?
Well, once a year, there's a national radiation oncology meetings.
Okay.
And these are the largest radiation oncology meetings in the world. And so I'm just back from Atlanta, and Southern Fried Chicken, and Jimmy Carter Museum, and let me think what else we have. Some other famous things, the Atlanta Braves, CNN, right. Centennial Park, and new cancer news. The latest news, attended all the meetings. We were there at 7 in the morning, and we stayed 12 hours a day.
Long days.
So 7 to 7, and there was a lot of information presented on a lot of different kinds of cancer and updates. So if you're a listener and want to bring up a topic, I'm happy to describe what I learned, and otherwise I'm going to talk in random order about things that were interesting to me.
That sounds good.
What was interesting to me, there's lots of things interesting to me. One was the fact that there's a lot of vendors at the meeting. So on one hand, there's a scientific program, and it's pure science, and they present data and cases and abstracts and discussions and reviews, and that's all scientific.
Right.
And then there's another room where vendors are able to sell their products. And many of the vendors were proton beam vendors.
Really?
And these proton beam vendors are selling machines that cost $100 or $200 million. And one of the universities there, Emory, which is famous in Atlanta, and
Sure.
it's one of the most distinguished universities,
Yeah.
has a whole city block that they tore down.
Wow.
And they're putting in a proton beam center in the middle of Atlanta. We're talking about a $200 million investment, plus the real estate.
Yeah. Wow.
And then, so you have all this. You have the vendors and the salesmen, and these hospitals are trying to get rich quick. And then you've got the data for proton beam.
Right, yeah, we've talked about that.
And we've talked about the data, and I'm going to talk about it in just a minute to remind our listeners. And you've got on one hand, the companies are trying to either do a public service or get rich quick, one of the two.
Yeah.
The hospitals, there's about 11 proton beam centers in America, and there's about 15 more planned, like Emory.
Yeah.
And then you have to wonder, the insurance companies are cutting off financing for proton beam because
Right.
there's no data showing it's better. And in fact, I like to present the data, so I think data is king. So if you have, for example, a Gleason 8, 9, 10. Gleason is how the cancer looks under the microscope, and 8, 9, 10 is a more aggressive cancer.
Right.
You'd think if proton beam was hot tamales, it would be better.
Yeah.
But their 5-year cancer-free survival at a major institution for Gleason 8, 9, 10 is 48%. We, with our program of brachytherapy and radiosurgery, is at 70%, which is 46% more men cancer-free at 5 years.
Yeah.
So obviously there's 200,000 men a year with prostate cancer. If everyone was in that category, 46% would be another 90,000 men lives saved.
That's right.
So the data is not out there for proton beam. The insurance companies are cutting back. They're cutting back either covering it or cutting back the amount. And then you see these hospitals that are spending, like Emory,
A lot of money.
Now, Emory told some of my friends they're not going to treat prostate cancer. They don't believe it's good for prostate cancer. They're only going to treat pediatric only children with cancer. Well, there's not even much data showing. There's no data showing proton beam is better for children either.
Right.
It's funny how they're marketing it to different people and
Yeah.
different areas, and they're going to have their work cut out for them.
Yeah.
You know?
It's insurance doesn't cover it for pediatric population?
Well,
or?
right now, insurances seem to be cutting back. We talked about 3 plans that are cutting back or canceling coverage because there's not data.
Right.
You know, in the old days, the old days are yesterday. For example, there was a study from Canada for women with breast cancer.
Yeah.
And in Canada, there's not so many facilities as in the United States. In the United States, there's so many medical facilities. If you want an MRI, do you want it at 10:15 or 10:20 today? In Canada, do you want it 10 weeks from now or 20 weeks from now?
Right. Yeah, totally different.
And so the access to care is different. Now, whether it impacts health care is another issue, and it probably doesn't for many diseases, but American citizens are not used to waiting.
Yeah.
So in Canada, there was a randomized study for women with breast cancer. So the usual treatment for breast cancer, if a woman wants to save her breast, and obviously many women want to save their breast, not have a mastectomy, you can remove the lump of cancer, and the usual treatment is 5 or 6 weeks of external radiation.
Mm-hmm.
So in Canada, there was a randomized study that looked at that versus a shorter course of treatment, about 16 treatments, so about half the treatments.
Right.
And it makes a big deal if you're driving 500 miles to get to your radiation center for every treatment.
Yeah, definitely.
You want to try to shorten the course. So in Canada, there was a randomized study, and it took thousands of women and randomly allocated the patients half to the usual course of radiation, half to the shorter course of radiation.
Okay.
And then it followed them for 10 years. Then they published the data, and it's been another almost 10 years since the data's been out. And now that data is being implemented in the United States, only when it's proven and double proven. So why does it take so long for breast cancer data to be out there proven? And yet proton beam is being implemented without any randomized studies.
Right. It's true.
Why is that?
I'm guessing it's financially better for the institutions to.
Yeah, if you give
Right.
20 or 30 treatments, it's better than if you give half the number of treatments. So the institutions don't have any incentive to
Right.
do the treatment, even if it's proven in a randomized study, which means that women are randomly allocated, they're followed up, your likelihood of having a good cancer treatment result and a good cosmetic result. Because when we radiate a woman with breast cancer, she wants to be cured, and she wants to have a normal-looking breast, right?
Yeah.
And so the study followed that and analyzed that, and the women who had a shorter course had the same chance of being cancer-free and the same chance of having a good cosmetic result. But there was no equipment to sell, right? In fact, the hospitals and doctors that implemented would probably get half as much money as if you gave the traditional. So there was no incentive to offer these women that care, even though it was more convenient, more comfortable, and equally beneficial.
Yeah.
Yet for proton beam, if you offer proton beam, you can get twice as much or 3 times more money, even if there's no randomized study, no data. And what's the incentive?
Money.
Money, yeah. So it's the disparity between the two programs. One is available today. Women that come to us, we talk about that. And many women would rather have a shorter course of radiation. Why not? It's proven. Why not? And yet men with prostate cancer, many are clamoring for proton beam with no data.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense.
It does not make sense.
So anyway, that was the topic of the meeting, and I'm sure it's unfortunately these projects that have $200 million projects and they're tearing down city blocks in the middle of Atlanta, you can't just stop it in the middle, right? They probably have financing, they've torn down the blocks, and they probably have signed contracts.
That's right.
So they're stuck with a project they probably have second thoughts about. Then they have to market it more heavily. They have to try to convince people that it's good, even though there's no data that it's good. So people with prostate cancer and proton beam, think about it. Look at the data.
Yeah.
Because there is no data.
Yeah. And you showed us that Wall Street.
Right, the Wall Street Journal had headlines. So it's very interesting. So there are all kinds of interesting things. This week, remember, we had a study a few weeks ago that we talked about women who had one lymph node positive didn't need to have dissection of their axilla. Do you remember that for breast cancer?
Right.
Right. So if you have one lymph node positive, you can just have radiation to the axilla. The axilla is another name for the armpit where the lymph nodes reside for many breast cancer patients. And there's less toxicity. There's less chance of arm swelling.
Yeah.
And we talked about it on the program. And just this week, a woman came in. She had one of 4 lymph nodes positive
Okay.
at another facility, a big hospital in New York, by the way. And then her surgeon did what?
I don't know, scheduled her for a mastectomy.
No, he did another axillary dissection to take out 15 more lymph nodes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So she had 2 surgeries on her armpit. We know that increases the likelihood of arm swelling and of pain.
Okay.
More than doubles the risk. So people that listen to this program may save themselves a lot of trouble. And I told the woman, we discussed this exactly a month ago on the program, that there's new data out there showing you don't need to do a double operation for the axilla. Radiation is equal to surgery, and it probably gives better results.
Yeah.
Actually, the study shows it does give better results. Anyway, we're live on WOR. We're taking your questions. If you have questions, our number is 800-321-0710, 800-321-0710. We have a booklet and DVD to send to people about our work, and I'm happy to send that to you. I realized that we didn't ever talk about what's radiosurgery. What do we do that's so special? Do you know what radiosurgery is?
So yeah, it's using the radio beams, basically to kill cancer cells.
Right,
and
but
to target them.
It's more targeted. So let's just say if you have a plum in a bread box, standard radiation treats the bread box to get to the plum. And so all that bread box means is your normal healthy tissue, like your heart, your lung, your intestines, your stomach, your kidney, your liver. And in this day and age, there's more sophisticated technology. And we were the first ones to bring radiosurgery to America so we can aim just at the cancer and avoid harm in general to the healthy tissues.
Right.
It's not cutting. Radiosurgery is a name, but it's not an accurate name. It's designed to say the radiation beam is going to work like surgery, but it is totally non-surgical.
Right. Non-invasive.
So it's non-invasive. The treatment takes 15 minutes. The person comes in with their cancer. We find the cancer. We send in the beam. It's non-invasive. There's no cutting, no bleeding. And the success rate where we treat for all our patients, if we add up all our patients, and it's thousands, about 20,000, is about 90% for the rest of the life of the patient. So it's very high success. But I realized we didn't talk much about what we do, and for people listening to the program, they may wish to know what the heck we're doing.
That's right.
I have a dilemma, and I'm going to talk about this dilemma because my son asked that I talk about it. My son came with me to Atlanta at the national cancer meetings, and we got on the bus. They have all these hotels in Atlanta, and they have buses picking up all the doctors. They go to hotel, so there's like 50, 60 doctors in every bus, right?
Okay.
They pick you up at wherever you are. We were at the Motel 6. People asked, where did you stay? We stayed at Motel 6.
Okay.
But other people stayed at the Marriott and Ritz-Carlton and the Hilton. And so anyway, we got on the bus the last day, my son and I.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's all these doctors piling on the bus and piling off the bus. And I looked on the driver. The driver